15 kilograms of ammunition can disappear in under 3 minutes from a single support gunner if the rate of fire is pushed too high. By the end, you will understand why the popular story of the Special Operations Support Gunner is wrong. The image is simple. A heavily armed operator, larger weapon, more firepower, holding the line while others move. It shows up in films, recruitment imagery, even casual conversation. The belief is that the support gunner is the anchor of a team, the one who dominates space through sheer volume of fire. A lesser-known fact is that most special operations units deliberately avoid prolonged high-volume fire because it increases detection risks through sound, heat, and signature. That belief persists because it feels logical. More bullets should mean more control. Larger weapon systems suggest superiority, and historically, machine gunners in conventional forces did form the backbone of infantry firepower. A lesser-known fact is that modern special operations doctrine often prioritizes precision and mobility over sustained suppression. Even when a support gun is present, what people claim first is simple. The support gunner exists to lay down constant suppressive fire. It sounds right because suppression has been a core infantry concept since at least the First World War. Continuous fire pins the enemy, allowing maneuver. A lesser-known fact is that suppression is measured not just by rounds fired, but by accuracy and proximity. Near misses often matter more than volume. The missing detail is time. Ammunition is finite, and resupply is uncertain. In a special operations context, teams may carry only what they can move with speed and stealth. That changes everything. A lesser-known fact is that a typical dismounted special operations patrol may carry between 600 and 1,200 rounds for a light machine gun, compared to several thousand in conventional units with vehicle support. The real explanation runs through logistics. Fire too much, too early, and the gunner becomes a liability. The weapon becomes dead weight once ammunition is gone. Heat builds up in the barrel, accuracy drops, the role shifts from suppressor to burden. A lesser-known fact is that barrel overheating can begin to degrade accuracy after as few as 200 to 300 rounds fired in quick succession. Depending on the weapon system, picture a narrow valley engagement. Contact is made at 150 meters. The inexperienced assumption is to open up fully, but within 2 minutes, the gunner has burned through a third of available ammunition. The team now has less endurance, less flexibility, and a louder signature. A lesser-known fact is that acoustic detection of gunfire can allow enemy forces to triangulate position within seconds if multiple sensors are present. Another claim follows closely. The support gunner is always the strongest, the biggest, the one who carries the most weight without compromise. It sounds reasonable. The weapon is heavier. The ammunition load is larger. Physical strength seems like the defining requirement. A lesser-known fact is that endurance, not peak strength, correlates more strongly with operational effectiveness in long-duration missions. The part nobody mentions is fatigue accumulation. Carrying 25 to 35 kilograms over uneven terrain for hours degrades decision-making, fine motor skills decline, reaction time slow. A lesser-known fact is that cognitive performance can drop measurably after sustained load carriage, exceeding 30% of body weight over several hours. The real system-level truth is trade-off. A heavier gunner moves slower. A slower team risks compromise. In special operations, speed and timing often outweigh raw firepower. A lesser-known fact is that mission success rates in certain special operations, studies have shown higher correlation with movement speed and timing than with firepower superiority. Imagine an insertion that requires a 10-kilometer approach march. The support gunner falls behind by even 30 seconds during a critical phase. That gap can break formation, expose flanks, or delay action on target. A lesser-known fact is that small unit tactics often rely on synchronized movement within seconds, not minutes, to maintain surprise. Then there is the belief that the support gunner dominates every engagement, that once firing begins, the enemy is effectively suppressed or neutralized. It feels true because of the psychological impact of automatic fire. The sound alone suggests overwhelming force. A lesser-known fact is that trained adversaries often learn to identify firing patterns and exploit pauses or reload windows. What is missing is the cycle of the weapon. Fire, pause, adjust, reload. Every system has rhythm, and that rhythm can be read. A lesser-known fact is that belt-fed weapons typically require several seconds to reload under stress, creating predictable gaps in fire. The real explanation is that dominance comes from coordination, not a single weapon. The support gunner is part of a system. Riflemen, communication, positioning, these matter more than volume alone. A lesser-known fact is that coordinated fire from multiple shooters, even at lower individual rates, can create more effective suppression than a single high-rate weapon. Consider a compound assault. The gunner opens fire early, attempting dominance. The enemy adapts, waits for the reload, then shifts position. The team loses initiative. A lesser-known fact is that initiative in Smolensk combat often changes hands within seconds, based on timing errors. Another persistent idea is that the support gunner carries the most important weapon, that without it, the team is significantly weakened. This comes from conventional infantry structure, where machine guns are central. A lesser-known fact is that many special operations missions are conducted without any belt-fed weapons at all. Depending on objectives, the hidden constraint is mission type, reconnaissance, direct action, counterterrorism. Each demands different tools. A heavy weapon can be a liability in confined spaces or urban interiors. A lesser-known fact is that shorter weapons with maneuverability are often preferred in close quarters. Battle due to faster target acquisition. The real explanation is adaptability. The support gunner role exists, but it is not fixed. It changes based on mission parameters. Sometimes the gun is essential, sometimes it is unnecessary. A lesser-known fact is that modular loadouts allow teams to reconfigure weapons and roles between missions within hours. Picture a building clearance, tight hallways, multiple rooms. A large support weapon becomes difficult to maneuver. Angles are limited. Speed is reduced. A lesser-known fact is that weapon length can significantly affect reaction time in confined environments. With longer systems increasing exposure risks during cornering, there is also the belief that more firepower equals more safety. That overwhelming the enemy reduces risk to the team. It sounds intuitive, but it ignores escalation. A lesser-known fact is that increased firepower can attract heavier response, including indirect fire or reinforcements. The missing piece is visibility. High rates of fire increase signature sound, muzzle flash, thermal output. This can draw attention from forces beyond the immediate engagement. A lesser-known fact is that thermal imaging systems can detect sustained firing positions due to heat buildup in barrels and surrounding surfaces. The real cause and effect chain is exposure. More fire leads to more detection. More detection leads to more threat. The balance shifts quickly. A lesser-known fact is that special operations doctrine often emphasizes minimizing engagement duration to reduce exposure rather than maximizing firepower. Imagine a nighttime engagement. The gunner fires extensively. Muzzle flashes reveal position repeatedly. Within minutes, opposing forces begin to bracket the area. A lesser-known fact is that muzzle flash visibility can extend hundreds of meters at night, even with flash suppression. Devices. Another claim is that the support gunner is always in the front, leading the fight. It is a compelling image, the heaviest weapon at the front line. A lesser-known fact is that support gunners are often positioned to control specific sectors rather than lead movement. The overlooked detail is positioning. Effective use of a support weapon depends on field of fire, cover, and communication. Being at the very front can limit these. A lesser-known fact is that optimal firing positions often require elevation or offset angles, not direct frontal placement. The real explanation is geometry. Angles of fire, lines of sight, and fields of coverage determine effectiveness, not proximity alone. A lesser-known fact is that overlapping fields of fire from multiple positions create more effective coverage than a single forward position. Consider a team advancing. The gunner moves too far ahead, loses the angle, and cannot cover the team effectively. The weapon becomes underutilized at the critical moment. A lesser-known fact is that misalignment of fields of fire is a common issue in poorly coordinated engagements. Then comes the myth of endless reliability, that the support weapon will function continuously under any condition. This belief comes from rugged design and testing standards. A lesser-known fact is that even the most reliable machine guns require regular maintenance cycles, including cleaning and lubrication. The hidden constraint is environment. Dust, sand, cold oil affect performance. Malfunctions occur, and when they do, they often happen under stress. A lesser-known fact is that fine sand can cause stoppages in belt-fed systems by interfering with feed mechanisms. The real explanation is probability. More rounds fired increases the chance of malfunction. It is not a question of if, but when. A lesser-known fact is that malfunction rates, while low per round, accumulate over hundreds or thousands of rounds fired. Picture sustained contact. The gunner experiences a stoppage at a critical moment. The assumption of constant fire breaks. The team must adapt instantly. A lesser-known fact is that clearing certain malfunctions under stress can take several seconds, which is significant in close combat. The deeper driver behind all these myths is not ignorance, but inheritance. Much of what people believe about support gunners comes from conventional warfare large units, heavy logistics, sustained engagements. Special operations operate under different constraints. A lesser-known fact is that special operations missions often prioritize stealth and speed over sustained engagement, fundamentally altering equipment choices. Industry plays a role. Weapons are designed with certain doctrines in mind. Marketing emphasizes capability, not limitation. Training adapts. But slowly, a lesser-known fact is that procurement decisions can lag behind tactical evolution by years or even decades. Leadership incentives matter too. Demonstrating firepower can be politically or psychologically appealing. It signals strength, but effectiveness is quieter, harder to see. A lesser-known fact is that after-action reports often reveal that restraint, not aggression, led to mission success. Logistics ties everything together. Ammunition, weight, resupply options, transport, limitations, all shape what is possible. The support gunner is not just a shooter, but a node in a system of constraints. A lesser-known fact is that in many operations, ammunition planning is calculated down to individual rounds per phase of the mission. The final truth is not complicated, but it is uncomfortable. The support gunner is not the center of the fight. The system is firepower, is a tool, not a solution. More is not always better. A lesser-known fact is that some of the most successful special operations missions involve minimal firing, relying instead on timing, intelligence, and precision. Cause leads to effect. Weight affects speed. Speed affects surprise. Surprise affects outcome. Firepower influences exposure. Exposure influences survival. Every decision connects. A lesser-known fact is that small deviations in timing sometimes, less than a minute, can determine success or failure in high-risk operations. War does not reward the loudest weapon. It rewards the correct decision at the correct moment, made under pressure with incomplete information. In Afghanistan, some support gunners carried more than 900 rounds of 7.62 x 51 millimeters. A load that could exceed 20 kilograms once belts, boxers, and spare barrels were included. By the end, you will understand why the popular story of the Special Operations Support Gunner collapses under the weight of its own assumptions. The common picture does not come from nowhere. It is built from decades of footage, from the lineage of the M60 machine gun to the M249 light machine gun, where machine gunners anchored squads with sustained fire. People assume that special operations simply use a more elite version of the same idea. A lesser-known fact is that special operations units frequently downgrade from heavier calibers to lighter ones during certain missions to increase mobility and reduce acoustic signature. The belief continues because it simplifies complexity. One man, one big gun, one clear role. It is easier to understand than a shifting network of responsibilities. A lesser-known fact is that many special operations teams rotate the role of support gunner between missions, depending on terrain and objective rather than fixed assignment. Now consider the claim that the support gunner decides the outcome of a firefight, that his weapon determines whether a team lives or dies. It sounds plausible because fire superiority is a real concept. Whoever controls the volume and accuracy of fire can influence movement. A lesser-known fact is that fire superiority in modern doctrine is often defined as the ability to suppress effectively with minimal rounds, not maximum output. What gets ignored is the distribution of responsibility. In a small team, every member contributes to suppression, observation, and maneuver. The gunner amplifies, but does not replace, the system. A lesser-known fact is that in many engagements, the majority of effective suppression comes from coordinated, semi-automatic fire rather than continuous automatic bursts. The real mechanism is timing. The gunner's fire must align with movement, communication, and terrain. Out of sync, it becomes noise. In sync, it becomes control. A lesser-known fact is that coordinated fire plans in small units are often rehearsed down to second-level timing. Before execution, imagine a hillside engagement. The gunner opens early, before the team is ready to maneuver. The enemy takes cover, adjusts, and the advantage is lost before it is used. A lesser-known fact is that premature engagement is one of the most common causes of failed ambushes. Another idea follows, that the support gunner always carries the heaviest weapon available, usually something like the Mk48 machine gun or even heavier systems when possible. It sounds right because heavier weapons generally deliver more power. A lesser-known fact is that lighter platforms like the Mk46 machine gun are often preferred in missions requiring long-range foot movement. The missing constraint is terrain. Mountains, urban zones, dense vegetation, each puniches weight differently. A heavy weapon that performs well in open terrain may become a liability elsewhere. A lesser-known fact is that energy expenditure increases exponentially with load weight when moving over uneven terrain, not linearly. The real explanation is efficiency. A slightly less powerful weapon that allows faster movement and longer endurance often contributes more to mission success. A lesser-known fact is that studies of infantry load carriage show that reducing weight by even 5 kilograms can significantly improve speed and reduce fatigue over long distances. Picture a long infiltration route. The heavier gunner slows the team, increasing exposure time by an hour or more. That extra hour increases the probability of detection. A lesser-known fact is that detection probability riseth with time spent in hostile areas, even without direct contact. Then comes the belief that support gunners fire in long, continuous bursts to keep the enemy pinned. This comes directly from older footage and training concepts. A lesser-known fact is that modern doctrine emphasizes short, controlled bursts to preserve ammunition and maintain accuracy. The overlooked detail is dispersion. Long bursts increase recoil effects, spreading rounds over a wider area and reducing effective suppression. A lesser-known fact is that controlled bursts of 3 to 5 rounds often produce tighter, grouping, and more effective suppression than longer bursts. The real cause and effect chain is control. Short bursts allow adjustment. Adjustment increases accuracy. Accuracy increases suppression efficiency. A lesser-known fact is that near misses within a few meters can suppress effectively, meaning precision matters more than volume. In a street engagement, a gunner fires a long burst. Rounds strike walls, windows, and empty space. The enemy remains functional. A second gunner uses controlled bursts, placing rounds closer to the threat. The effect is immediate. A lesser-known fact is that suppression effectiveness correlates strongly with perceived proximity of fire, not total rounds fired. Another assumption is that the support gunner is constantly firing during contact. That silence from the gun means failure. A lesser-known fact is that deliberate pauses are often used to conserve ammunition and force the enemy to reveal movement. What people miss is information. Continuous fire can obscure visual and auditory cues. Pauses allow observation, target identification, and communication. A lesser-known fact is that overuse of automatic fire can reduce situational awareness by masking sounds of movement or communication. The real explanation is rhythm management. Fire, observe, adjust. The gunner becomes part of a cycle rather than a constant stream. A lesser-known fact is that experienced gunners often develop intuitive timing patterns. Based on terrain and enemy behavior, consider a compound defense. The gunner pauses. The enemy attempts to reposition. That movement reveals location, enabling precise engagement. A lesser-known fact is that many successful engagements rely on inducing enemy movement rather than suppressing it indefinitely. There is also the myth of immunity, that the support gunner behind a large weapon is somehow less vulnerable. It feels true because of perceived dominance. A lesser-known fact is that support gunners are often prioritized targets due to their role and weapon signature. The hidden constraint is visibility. Larger weapons produce more noticeable signatures: sound, flash, movement. This draws attention. A lesser-known fact is that adversaries often identify machine gun positions first and focus fire accordingly. The real explanation is risk concentration. The gunner carries more firepower, but also more attention. Survival depends on positioning, movement, and team support. A lesser-known fact is that casualty rates among machine gunners in conventional conflicts have historically been higher than average infantry roles. Imagine an open engagement. The gunner fires from a fixed position. The enemy identifies the source and concentrates fire. Without movement, the position becomes untenable. A lesser-known fact is that static firing positions are more likely to be targeted accurately over time. Another belief is that the support gunner's job is purely mechanical carry. Set up fire, it reduces the role to physical action. A lesser known fact is that support gunners are trained in target prioritization, communication, and coordination as much as weapon handling. The missing element is cognition. Decisions about when to fire, where to aim, and how to coordinate are critical. The weapon is only a tool. A lesser-known fact is that decision-making under stress is one of the most heavily trained aspects of special operations roles. The real explanation is integration. The gunner must understand the entire situation, not just his own sector. Awareness of team movement, enemy behavior, and terrain is essential. A lesser-known fact is that miscommunication between team members is a leading cause of tactical errors in small unit engagements. Picture a dynamic firefight. The gunner focuses only on firing, missing a signal to shift fire. The team's movement is exposed. A small lapse becomes a large problem. A lesser-known fact is that even brief communication breakdowns can disrupt coordinated action in high-speed engagements. Then there is the idea that better weapons solve everything. Newer, lighter, more advanced systems are seen as answers. A lesser-known fact is that improvements in weapon design often come with trade-offs in durability, maintenance, or costs. The overlooked reality is that no system is perfect. Lighter weapons may heat faster, heavier ones may last longer, but slow movement. Every design reflects compromise. A lesser-known fact is that some lightweight machine guns require more frequent barrel changes under sustained fire conditions. The real explanation is balance. The best weapon depends on mission context. There is no universal solution. A lesser-known fact is that weapon selection is often mission-specific, with different systems chosen for different objectives within the same unit. Consider a long patrol. A lighter weapon allows speed but limits sustained fire. A heavier weapon provides firepower but reduces endurance. The decision shapes the entire mission. A lesser-known fact is that such decisions are often made at the planning stage based on intelligence and terrain analysis. The deeper driver behind these myths is the mismatch between image and reality. Visual media favors dramatic firepower. Doctrine emphasizes restraint and precision. The gap between the two creates misunderstanding. A lesser-known fact is that after-action reviews often highlight restraint and discipline as key factors in success. Training reinforces this. Repetition builds habits of control, not excess. Gunners learn when not to fire as much as when to fire. A lesser-known fact is that ammunition conservation is a formal part of training, with specific drills focused on controlled fire. Logistics remains the constant constraint. Every round carried must justify its weight. Every kilogram affects movement. The support gunner operates within these limits at all times. A lesser-known fact is that logistical planning often includes contingency calculations for ammunition expenditure under different engagement scenarios. The final truth is a chain, not a single idea. Weight affects movement. Movement affects timing. Timing affects surprise. Surprise affects engagement length. Engagement length affects ammunition use. Ammunition use affects survival. A lesser-known fact is that shorter engagements with controlled fire statistically result in lower casualty rates in small unit operations. War compresses decisions. It removes the illusion of excess. What remains is efficiency of movement, of fire, of thought,